Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Bruce and I are excited to be talking to you about leveraging data in manufacturing. We're going to spend the next 15, 20 minutes going through how we've seen the evolution of data and how our clients are using it at their manufacturing facilities. First things first, let us go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Dan Purcell. I'm a senior account manager with Actemium. I spent the last 20 plus years working in manufacturing. I've been fortunate enough to visit several different manufacturing facilities across a broad range of industry, and so got an excellent chance to really see how data impacts our clients. And with me is...
Yep, so thank you, Dan. I am Bruce Slusser. I am our Digital Transformation Practice Director here at Actemium. Been with Actemium for the last 7 years or so, and really my team focuses on data governance, data analytics, machine learning and industrial applications, and most recently applying AI applications to machine learning to speed up that deployment process. So really excited to be here with everybody today and kind of talk about this a little bit more and sort of maybe pull the curtains back on what it is that we do.
Great. Well, let's jump right into it. In order to understand why we're so excited about data ops, we need to take a look at traditional solutions that we've built for many years versus the new data ops driven one. Let me give you an example. If you take a look at this, what I call now a traditional dashboard, this is something we've been talking to our clients about for many years. As long as I've been in the industry, people are trying to get access to their data. Everybody knows that if you can see your data, you can use it to make better decisions. So if you don't have this dashboard right here, we need to be talking. Don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with this. But when I look at it, I really think Bruce is going to agree with me here. 34% OEE is not having a great day.
No.
So if I'm running the plant, I've achieved something here. If I had this solution put in place, I can say, great, I'm going to pretend here, Bruce, you're the boss. I can say, boss, I know we're having a bad day, but I've got all the reason codes. I've got the reason. I'm going to go figure out what went wrong. Now, the unintended consequence of doing this that we've realized is that we, unfortunately, are getting feedback that while people love access to the data, we have turned a whole bunch of their staff into data scientists. I had a plant manager tell me that's exactly the problem. He has his supervisors now spending 6 to 7 hours a day interpreting the data to try to figure out the root cause. And more importantly, how to prevent this from happening tomorrow. What I'm really excited about is the next slide, because now I'm going to hand it over to Bruce, and he's going to tell you how that's exactly what our team is doing, is leveraging all of this data you see here, but to start making powerful predictions and preventing problems.
So, Dan, how much time do you think the typical person spends analyzing these types of reports throughout a single week?
It's actually, that's a great question. And I think it's even a loaded question from my friend here, is that it's either a significant amount of time or unfortunately, it's no time. Because this will start to be, if I have to spend so much time figuring this stuff out, at the end of the day, my job at a plant, I'm probably just going to go make good product and worry about my day job.
So on average, what we've seen from multiple surveys that we've done with customers, we see people spending about 8 hours a week just looking at the data. That's a day of their time. And so where this gets really exciting is how we're starting to now move away from making people on the plant floor a resident data scientist into providing them with that data right available to them immediately. And so,
right.
Yeah.
And I think a really good point there, Bruce, is just because I stared at data for 8 hours doesn't mean I solved anything.
Exactly. So how do we solve that problem? How do we get the right information in front of people to be proactive? We talk about being retroactively, applied where we can see what happened. What we're doing now is, as you can see inside the box that's highlighted here, we're actually using machine learning models to start making predictions as to where we're going to be heading. And this can be anything, but in this case, it's OEE, right? Not only is it saying I'm going to have low OEE, I can immediately see what are the top drivers that that are going to impact that OEE based on the model's training that we have from historical data. Now I'm no longer having to be an analyst. I just have the information available for me to start going after it.
Well, in fact, and I love that, because what we're really talking about is, instead of handing all of the data, I think you'll agree here, is that while this is more now intended for somebody in an office, a supervisor, a plant manager, on the floor, we're only showing them an operator the data they need and giving them those suggestions to say, here's the parameters that need to change in order for you to help us produce great product at the right volumes.
Exactly. Your operators specifically can't be sitting and staring at data all day long. They need what is important to them immediately available. This gives them that information at their fingertips. They can look and they can quickly see, am I going to achieve my goal for the day? And if not, these are the things that I need to be concerned with. It takes all of the art out of trying to figure that out.
Well, and that's where, as we continue to talk this through, we're going to share some examples, but that's why we're so excited, is that the model is now, I'm going to go ahead and lightly use the term, saying predicting the future for you.
Yeah, that's what's so exciting about this.
With the capabilities that Bruce just talked about, you have to ask yourself, why isn't everybody doing this? One of the challenges we're hearing from quite a few people is that the AI and ML topic can still be a little bit confusing on how to get started. What's the right approach? And of course, there's not really a wrong approach, but our particular belief is that we really want to work with our clients to identify a very specific problem and attack that first. And how are we doing that, Bruce?
Yeah, so oftentimes we get into an early conversation with customers that come to us for help with this. And the first thing that they say is, we want to do machine learning, we want to do AI because we don't want to fall behind. And we say that's a great, just initiative to understand we need to be doing something. But we try to take that a step further, right? Where in the business are you trying to make an improvement or an optimization? We need to nail it down to a very specific problem in a very specific area. And that's going to be our first use case. Now, certainly, that isn't going to be our only use case. And so as we start to structure these projects, the reason that this slide is not called Machine Learning Solves Root Cause is it's really a full data ops approach and an architecture that we put in place for these projects, because we focus on two main things. We focus on being able to scale up when we finally do, identify that, hey, we've got a specific area that we've looked at, it's giveaway pounds, right? We want to reduce giveaway pounds. We know that we're giving away 8% on average every day. And so the first thing that we go after is that. But the approach needs to scale both vertically and horizontally. And the way that we do that is with data ops.
Yeah, and I think I love what you said there, because the other piece to this is that data ops is really a journey. I mean, this isn't something that we pretend that we're going to come in, we're going to solve all your problems, and we're going to leave. No, it's going to be an ongoing evolution, and new problems happen all the time. While today, throughput was the biggest one, and you wanted to get that solved. Well, by solving that, and as Bruce said, if we can reduce that 8%, even if it's 4%, that's savings. You can use that to build a self-funding roadmap. You can then get your organization excited about it. Getting the organization on board with these initiatives is crucial, regardless of what they are. So seeing a quick win, a victory, but what Bruce is talking about is we're laying the foundation. So now, Bruce, take me through. We're working together, and I'm your client, and we just solved my giveaway issue, and I'm super happy. But now my biggest issue is asset reliability. How hard is it to plug that into the new system?
Yeah, exactly. And so the platforms that we build upon allow us to make use of the structure of the data that we brought in already. Often cases, we may be able to leverage some of the data that we already procured into that structure. Sometimes we have to add additional context, right? Or we might be working in a different area, but the groundwork has been laid for how we go about structuring that data, how we bring it into the platform and start to leverage it for machine learning and build these models. So to pivot to that new use case is not a massive undertaking. It might be pulling and identifying some new data sources, But from then on out, we're bringing it in the exact same approach, the exact same way, and we're solving another different use case.
So for the next part, Bruce, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to put you on the spot. Because if everybody attending today or people watching this are like me, this all sounds good. But in order to convince me, you got to talk through a case study. I want to always know, and I think everybody would love to hear an actual case where you've done this and what the results were.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is really exciting in this case. We had a customer come to us where they were struggling with variations in their product quality and couldn't quite put their finger on what was driving the variability throughout their process to where it was leading into a quality issue downstream. And even more complex is that there wasn't necessarily a means throughout that process to measure quality until it had come out the end, where they could then take a finished product off the line and do different types of tests for cracking, for colored thickness, and really the issue that they were finding out was they thought that they had identified what the issue could be, but there was no way to prove it. So they asked us to come in and really help identify where the root cause was in this variability. And the way that we went about that was we first started off with an assessment where we came on site, we looked at the entire process, and basically modeled out from front to end what their process was, what the different process variables were, the different set points that they were collecting, all the different data sources that were available to us to even understand whether or not the project was going to be something that we could take on. We do this as a precautionary measure every single time we approach one of these projects, because sometimes we find out that maybe there isn't a key variable that's being measured in the process, and we need to install some hardware up front. In this case, we did that. So with that assessment, we identified that we needed to install some moisture analyzers early on in the process. And so to kind of talk about the process a little bit, we have a tortilla chip making process where we have corn that gets soaked in large tanks for a while. That corn gets milled. After it gets milled, it gets flattened into sheets. Then it would then get cooked, and then it would get seasoned. And we installed moisture analyzers at several key points in that process, started to collect the data from it along with the existing process variables that we had, and built up some history. When we had that history, we were able to then apply that to our machine learning models and identify that in fact we did have moisture variability in after the grains would get milled. And so what they then tried to figure out was, what can we control in the process? So the next step is, root cause is fantastic, but even further, how do we now control it so that we can mitigate that quality issue at the back of the line? And what we did was we were able to identify set points both for the thickness of the chip as well as for the cook times, to identify that we can still maintain quality with some variation in those two pieces, which could adjust and maintain that control for that moisture variation.
You're saying that the model itself told you and the client what to do to solve the problem based on how it was running that day. Did I hear that correct?
Exactly. And it didn't require a data scientist to look at the data afterwards, right? So these were simple metrics that we can put on a screen. A bar gauge, it tells them whether or not they're in or out of their tolerance to maintain that quality. And it's 3 parameters that they have to go change on the machine.
Well, that's why I absolutely love that story, because it emphasizes everything we've been talking about. Your client here, they had the data, but they had so much data and they weren't necessarily looking in the right place. By adding a little bit of extra contextualization, now the system is doing the work for them and saying, hang on, make sure these parameters are right. And if they're not, I'm going to warn you. And I'm sure everybody's eyes are looking at that 27. It's jumping off the page. But talk through a little bit. That is what you achieve with your solution.
Yeah, that is where the value comes in here, right? Not only was it a quick time to value in this regards, but really 27% waste reduction. I mean, those are big numbers for them to reduce. And at the end of the day, that is time and money.
Absolutely. Great story, Bruce. And based on everything we've shared, the only question I can see that's left is the big one. How do I get started? And the obvious concern that people, as we're meeting new clients, will express to us is to say, how long is this going to take? And hearing your case study, what I'd like you to do now is tell everybody, how long did that really take? Did this take years to get implemented?
Yeah, so, in the past, machine learning initiatives were very large undertakings for a business. And with recent advancements in cloud computing and cloud technologies, we leverage cloud platforms with machine learning and AI to significantly reduce that time to when we're actually seeing and getting value out of these projects. So this is a great timeline here, right? We can look at it, we see the foundational piece, and this is where we're talking about that data governance. Where does all your data live? Making sure that it's accurate data, that we can pull it in and consume that data. So we focus on that piece first, because that's going to allow that scale out piece later on to happen much more efficiently. As we hit that foundational roadmap, or that foundational milestone, we move into, okay, let's start to actually build out and pick the right models and start to get value. That process is extremely fast compared to what it had been in the past. And you can see here, that time to value, 1 to 3 months of realization.
Yeah, I was just going to comment, Bruce. If I look at this is your model. You're looking at 2 months on the low end, 7 months on the high end, obviously affected by how much we're undertaking. But if I flip back to your case study in the tortilla chip, give us the number. What did it take to get through foundational and realizing?
Yeah. So for them, the biggest hurdle was that they had to install some new hardware. That was about a month or so up front it took them. Once we had that, we collected data and we had to build some history. So there was a little bit of lag time, right, in us building in the history so that the models can actually train on something. At the end of the day, that project was done in about 4.5 months.
It's very impressive to start seeing those types of savings. And I think that's the other piece that's worth emphasizing, is that over the years, many of our customers have collected a lot of data. In fact, we've all probably heard that piece where you go, well, great, you created a data swamp. You just have tons and tons of historical data that you're not leveraging. And sometimes the advice would be, hey, you got to start purging that. That's just, but what I just heard you say is crucial. Having more data is way better than having no data, because then this is the piece I think people misunderstand, is that these models don't work if they don't have data to drive them. Is that fair?
Exactly. And we want to make sure we can, sometimes we can come in and start putting that data to work immediately. There's many cases where we've walked into a customer in different scenarios. They already had everything that they needed to get up and running with machine learning. So that effort was, a 2-month project, and they were starting to see value. So it really depends on how wide you can cast that net of different data that might have correlations to each other. And having that repository up front can be extremely valuable. So we're putting that data that companies have been collecting for decades to good use now, and actually being able to consume it and use it.
Well, right. I think that's why when everybody hears it, when you start, you're always looking to bring your team out and do a quick assessment. And that's what we really want to make sure is clear, is that people often hear the assessment word and go, oh, here we go again, and this is going to think. But that's all part of your foundational piece. And what I think Bruce is really emphasizing here is that we have to understand where you're at in your journey today. And you might have made some serious investments over the years, and you've done a great job. We're going to leverage those. We're going to put them to work for you. All right. And with that, it is time to wrap it up. Really appreciate you joining us today. As you can tell, we love talking about this subject. We love helping our clients. So Absolutely reach out if you have any questions. No matter where you're at in the journey, we think we can provide value and we think we can help you out. Bruce, some parting words?
Yeah, so my team is passionate about this stuff, including myself. We're looking forward to being able to continue these conversations and hear what it is that you want to go after. We're made up of manufacturing and industrial expertise within our team. So please reach out to us. Let us know, where you might want to get started, have any questions. We're really looking forward to getting engaged on these topics.
I gotta be honest, I'm sold, Bruce. If I was in charge of a manufacturing facility, you'd be my next call.
Thanks, Dan.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.